Kids Cooking Guide. I am Chef Meg. I am a chef and mom of 3, and I'm here to help you get cooking in the kitchen with your kids. I did my culinary school in Florence, Italy, and in Italy, food is really so much of their culture. A lot of it is getting involved with your kids in the kitchen and making cooking a family affair. And that's what I wanted to bring back to the States and share with my kids, and hopefully share with you too. You would be surprised at how young kids can be involved in the kitchen and how much they're really capable of. The most important thing is to just start. The very first thing that you should have your kids do when they get in the kitchen is to wash their hands with warm soapy water and then dry them off with a paper towel. One of the first lessons that I teach my children when I have them cooking with me and start getting them in the kitchen is proper hygiene. Obviously, washing your hands, pulling your hair back, not coughing on the food or sneezing on the food, or touching your nose or eyes, and then handling food. All those things are pretty obvious to us, but we need to remember to teach them to our children. And that is something that I tell them every time that we cook. Another thing is proper handling of food. So we talk about this by telling them, to wash their hands if they touch meat or fish or eggs, and explain to them why. Explain to them that eggs can carry salmonella and that can make them sick. I also go over food storage with them because a lot of times kids can forget to put things back in the fridge if they need to be kept cold. So I want to go over just basic safety of food handling with them, which I just kind of explain to them that things that are cold like meat and fish and seafood and eggs need to go back in the fridge right away. And lastly, I go over cooking times with them and cooking things completely. So things like chicken, we don't want to serve it rare. We want to cook it all the way through. And handling chicken. So when we're using tongs that have raw chicken on them and a plate that has raw chicken on them, we don't want to put the cooked chicken back on it. We want to talk about cross-contamination. That's what's cross-contamination. And so I go over cross-contamination with them and really just help them learn the safety and hygiene of food handling first. And this I do when I first start them in the kitchen. So you can start talking to your kids about all these things when they get into the kitchen with you. Let's talk kitchen safety 101. The most important thing that we want to talk about with our kids to get them involved in the kitchen is how to keep them safe. And we do this by talking to them about the rules that we have established for our kitchen and for cooking together. So your rules will be different at different ages and different stages of having your kids be involved in the kitchen. That is for you to set up. You can do what feels comfortable for you. If you don't want your kid turning on the stove until they're, older, then what I recommend, go ahead and do that. I want you to feel comfortable having your kids involved in the kitchen. So really, your safety for your kitchen is up to you and your standards. This is just what I do in my house with my kids, but you can always, up the age or lower the age to what you feel comfortable with. When you're ready to start cooking, this is how I like to set up my station. First, I just get a paper towel and make sure it's wet, and then you're just going to wring out the extra water, put it down on your work surface, and then you're gonna put your cutting board on top. And this is just going to help secure your cutting board. A lot of knife mishaps happen from a cutting board that moves. So this doesn't move anymore. You have a good grip on it and our cutting board is secure. The next thing I like to do is just get my knife and put it at the top. When working with knives with kids, you wanna make sure that the knife is always at the top away from them so it's not gonna fall on the floor or that they're gonna get their hands on it. The other thing that I like to do is have a bowl for trash. And this is just an easy way to kind of cook as you go and put the trash so you don't have to go over to the trash can every time that you need to throw something out. So I just put that up there and then my station is set. So one of the most important things when you're getting kids cooking in the kitchen with you is knife safety and how to get your kids going with knives, what kind of knives to use with them at their age. And so what I like to do is I like to start off with my young kids using a plastic knife. And you can do Play-Doh with them. You can just have them cut little pieces of bread or soft vegetables, and this is not going to cut them, and that is a good way to start. The next thing that I like to do is go up to a butter knife. So if you're having your kid use a butter knife to cut something like a carrot, it's actually really dangerous. You want to have them cut things that are, again, soft, like bread, soft vegetables like zucchini or cucumbers. And this is the next step that I kind of bump my kids up to. The other thing that I like to do is a paring knife. So this one isn't very sharp. A paring knife is a small knife. Keep in mind that the blade to the handle should be kind of the size of their forearm. That just helps them to have a good grip, and it makes it so that it's not a huge knife for their little bodies. So that's the paring knife. Then when they get comfortable with that, I like to kind of move up to a steak knife. Again, you can find some steak knives that aren't super sharp. They're not going to cut their finger off or get a cut if they slip. And I like to just kind of move up to this once they're prepared with all the rest of the safety and they kind of know what they're doing. They know the motions of the claw and the sawing motion, and they feel comfortable. So that's the next step. Then when your kids are getting older, you can kind of move up to a larger paring knife or a serrated knife that, again, is kind of to their forearm so that they feel comfortable using it. And this can cut through pretty much everything. So things like tomatoes, carrots, celery, I have them use this kind of knife. And then when your kids are old enough to really be cooking on their own, they can go to the chef's knife. Now, a chef's knife is a really personal knife to everyone. A lot of times people like to use a smaller chef knife, or sometimes they like to use a larger one, whatever they feel comfortable with. The knife tip to the end of the blade is measured in inches. So I typically use a 6-inch chef's knife for myself. Because I'm kind of shorter and smaller, it works with my forearm and it's just easier for me to cut through. But definitely, if you have your older kids cooking in the kitchen with you, I would recommend to get them their own knife. Go to the kitchen store, have them use it. They have, a lot of kitchen stores have vegetables that you can kind of work through and cut through, and so that they can feel comfortable and safe with their specific knife. So I start my kids in the kitchen using knives pretty early, a lot earlier than a lot of other people feel comfortable with. But the reason why I do is because they understand safety, and that is the priority. I'm teaching them how to safely use a knife. Whenever I have them in the kitchen with me, that is what we're talking about. Using the claw and saw technique when they're young. Putting the knives, where do we store the knives? You know, where does it go? How do I get the knives? Mommy and daddy are the only ones that can get the knives down. You always want to point your knife down when you're holding it. Things like that. And making sure that they don't take it lightly. If they start playing with their knives, then they won't be able to use them. You know, you got to set those boundaries, especially with tools like knives that can be dangerous. The other really important thing with knives is when you're cutting an object, you want that object to be as flat as possible. So if you're cutting an apple, which is a sphere, you want to cut off the bottom so that the kids have an item that isn't going to be rocking around. That is where cuts and slippage happens, is when your item is rocking around. Also, your cutting board, we always secure it. You want to use a cutting board that has grips, and then also use that technique that I showed you to put the wet paper towel down, because if your cutting board is moving around, chances are you're going to slip with that as well. And lastly, I am the only one that cleans my knives. Kids are just notorious for, accidentally running their fingers across the blade. So I would always just recommend you are the one that's going to wash your knives. A great thing to do at this age is to wear your baby in a sling or a carrier. And this way they're going to be close to you. They're going to be happier. You can still work with your hands and get everything done that you need to. Another way to get this age group involved is to have them sit in a little bouncer seat or a little bumbo seat if they can sit up on their own, and they can watch you cook, and always just talk to your baby and tell them what you're doing. So newborn to 6 month, obviously you're not going to be actually cooking with them, right? But it's great to have them involved by just simply being present, by simply being in the kitchen with you, holding them or in a bouncer or in a seat so that they can see what you're doing and be involved and start to kind of just get the pattern going. We're really just laying the foundation at this point, and having them in the kitchen with you is a great start. Another thing is to start talking to them. This is laying the foundation to talk to them when they're older about the process of what you're doing and how to cut and how to stir and all of these different things. So just get going and start the process now so it'll be easier for you later down the road. This age is so fun because literally they can just be sitting by your feet, playing with things like pots and pans and spatulas and wooden spoons and items that are safe for them. Again, at this age, you're really just trying to have them in the kitchen with you. Some ideas are to have them play with kitchen items. Pots and pans are always good. They can play music with those. They can be your taste tester because now they can eat solid food, so you can give them little tastes of what you're making. And they can feel and touch the food and play with it in their high chair as you cook. Just talk to them and have fun with it. So a great tip, if you just don't have enough time to kind of help your child in the kitchen that night for dinner, or say you're just in a hurry, you can have them do things like washing fruits and vegetables. And get a big bowl out of water, get all the fruits and vegetables out that you need for the week or even for the next day, and just have them wash it. And they love this. They love feeling a part of the process and having their specific job. I love this for kids in this age because they really can go get the produce from the fridge, go to the sink, fill up their water, and do it all themselves. This is the age to start teaching them knife skills. So the first thing I do with my children is I teach them knife skills through play. I love using just a plastic knife and Play-Doh and having them cut it, teach them how to hold the knife, and you can practice with them sawing. But Play-Doh is great because it gives the same texture as a food would, so they're learning the actual motor skills that they need to develop to cut. This age, you really think that your kid can't do much, but they can do so much, you guys. And I love it because a lot of it starts with play. Playing at this age is so important, and if you can play with them kitchen or play restaurant with them and help them to use toys, they will learn how to actually use the real thing later on. So a couple things to do while you're actually in the kitchen with them is they can stir ingredients with your help, they can use a rolling pin, they can measure things with your help, spread things, they can spread butter on toast and mashed potatoes and pour liquids into bowls. They really can do a lot of different things, but they do require a little bit of guidance. So guide the cup into the bowl, help them know the space they need to do that. And that will really help you to minimize the mess and to also teach them the actual skills that they're learning. 4 to 7-year-olds are an amazing age because they have learned this new independence where they just want to help you. They want to help you do things. They really love getting in the kitchen at this age, and you really can give them a little bit more independence. So one thing that I love doing at this age is to have them have a job. One of those jobs can be setting the table. This is a great way that they can get out the forks, get out the spoons, get out the plates, and really feel like it's their job for the night. At this age, you can have them help you make simple meals like scrambled eggs. And I always tell them that I am in charge of the actual appliance. So I am in charge of turning on and off the stove. They can't do that themselves, but they can help you. They can help you and they can stand there and watch you. And it's a great way to teach them how to make simple recipes. Another thing that I really love is a learning tower. Notice that Logan is standing on a learning tower, which elevates him high enough so that he can see what he's doing and have a safe height level to the stove. Another thing is that if you notice, the pan is on the back burner. That is really important, and the handle is turned to the side. Those simple things will help you keep your child safe. Another thing is you can notice that Logan is wearing an oven mitt, and an oven mitt just helps him in case he accidentally uses that hand to touch something on the stove or to touch the pan, he's not going to burn himself. I love having them stir and add salt and pepper and seasonings at this age. They're really interested in the cooking process and they can actually do a lot. You just have to give them that guidance that they need and the help that they need to really know the safety guidelines. I always go over this with my kids. Every time I cook, I tell them that mommy turns on the stove and turns off the stove and remind them of your rules. This is when we start teaching real knife skills. So you always want to start by teaching your child to use a claw with their hand that they're holding the vegetables with. Their fingers are curled under, and then they're using a sawing motion with their knife. This will help them stay safe and not cut themselves. At this point, I like to kind of graduate them to either a butter knife or a steak knife that isn't super sharp so that if they do slip, they're still safe and they're not gonna get a cut from it. So have them help you. Have them help you chop items and use it for that night's meal. It doesn't have to be perfectly diced or sliced, but they can still be a part of that process and help you.
Okay, now put all of your cucumbers in here. Good job, Logie. Way to go. Okay, now put all of them in there. Good job. Yeah. Okay, perfect.
4 to 7-year-olds are just in this new age of independence. So we want to foster that and have them kind of have specific tasks. One thing that I really love for my kids to do is to get out the ingredients. I give them a list, or I just simply tell them, get out the brown sugar, flour, and baking soda, and they have to go get those items. This is a great way that they can feel involved, but can also, give you a little bit of space to get things done cooking as well. They can also help you clean up the kitchen and, use a little handheld vacuum or wipe the countertops clean. This is a very important stage to teach that cleaning up is really a part of the cooking process as well. So have them help you do that. And lastly, they can make their own school lunches. I have my 4-year-old make his little lunch and he loves it. He can get the bread out and get the butter knife and spread the peanut butter on the bread. And he really feels like he is empowered by having this task. And it helps you lighten your load too. You don't have to make lunches every night. You can really have them help you and get involved a little bit more. A great thing at this age is that they can read. And so you want them to be able to read a recipe, to help you meal plan, to help you write grocery lists and learn that life skill, because that is definitely a life skill that will help them in the future. So sit down with them at the table, get your calendar out, and go through the meal plan or go through some recipes that you guys really enjoy making together and have them pick what day they want to help you in the kitchen. If you have multiple kids, a great tip is to have a specific child cook with you on a specific night. So here we have Kira and Chris, and Kira's night can be on Monday and Chris's night could be on Tuesday. And that way they get one-on-one attention with you and you can teach them the skills that they need to learn. Meal planning is so important because they can learn what a complete meal looks like. And grocery shopping is another way that they can learn a life skill by budgeting and figuring out what to buy at the store and stay within a budget. So this is a great thing to do, just simply 10 minutes, maybe on a weekday or a weeknight, to go through the meal plan for the week. It also helps them to reduce picky eating because they have a choice. They have a choice of what they can help make for the family. They also have learned how to do fractions, and so a great thing to do is to practice their math skills and get a recipe out and have them double it or have them half it. And they can practice their math skills while you cook, and they can learn the essential skill of doubling a recipe or halving a recipe. They've also graduated in the sense that they can use appliances on their own. So you can tell them how to use the appliance, tell them how to safely use it, and then they can use it on their own. Things like a mixer or a waffle maker are great ways that they can get involved and make something by themselves. If they need your help, you're there to help them. Just always remember to teach them what is the safety precautions first. So things like don't stick your finger in the KitchenAid while it's still moving. Baking is one of their favorite things to do at this age because they really feel confident in the kitchen at this point. So I would have them follow the recipe from beginning to end. They can make the cake from a cake mix or homemade. They can follow a recipe at this age. They can frost the cake and learn specific baking techniques and learn more about the process. So one thing that I have them do is obviously make the cake, and then they can frost it and decorate it. You can teach them different decorating techniques. You can also have them use piping bags at this point with different piping tips on them, and they can do swirls and different decorating techniques of piping. They really love to be creative, so foster that creativity, give them some tools, and have them bake a cake for you. This age is so fun because they're really blossoming into becoming great little cooks, and they can do almost everything on their own. They can use appliances on their own. They can use a small chef's knife at this age if they feel comfortable, and they really understand that it's a whole process. So I would definitely include them in the meal planning and the grocery list planning, and have them practice those math skills with fractions and doubling recipes, and just kind of let them on their own. Have them make you dinner one night or be in charge of a dinner. And that'll just boost their confidence. You're going to help them to just continue to learn and continue to become their own little chef. Slicing is a great knife skill that this age group can master. They simply can cut the item in half, use the claw and the sawing motion with their knife, and slice through the item. Cucumbers and tomatoes are perfect for practicing the slicing technique with your child. So julienning is a little bit more of an advanced skill for children. You want to make sure that they know knife safety, that they use their claw, they know their hand placement, and they have a sharp knife for this. You want a sharp knife so that they're not going to rock or anything like that. So what they're going to do is take the cucumber, cut it in half, cut that half in strips, and then cut those strips into smaller strips. And that is a julienne. Another great knife skill that kids this age can start learning is segmenting citrus. So this is a more advanced skill. Just so you know, if your child doesn't feel comfortable yet using a paring knife, or if they aren't mastering the safety skills, then you might want to wait on this one. But basically, all they're going to do is they're going to cut the top and the bottom off of the citrus, and they're going to go up and down on the sides to peel the rind off. And you want to use a paring knife for this. That gives them more dexterity. Using a big chef's knife is just too big for segmenting. It's more of a finer technique. So you want to cut off the rind, and then you're going to go in between each little membrane of the citrus. There are little membranes on each side of the segment that you're just going to cut in the middle. So you're going to take your paring knife and cut in the middle, and then it should come out. For this one, you can see Tanner did it on the outside, so it's going to be a full little piece with the membrane, but that's totally fine. This is where they're learning, you guys. They're learning how to use the knife, and they're learning a new skill. So 13 and 16-year-olds can really start to use different techniques. They can start to grill and learn what braising means, and searing and sauteing, and grilling. So they can really start to learn the difference of heat and the difference of cooking techniques. Here you have Tanner just searing up some steak. He can turn on and off the stove, and it's a great way to start having them cook dinner on their own. So at this age, it's great because they will be able to use all the kitchen appliances so long as you have discussed proper handling and safety. I love teaching them the specific culinary skills that we talked about and specific cutting techniques that we talked about. And they can really be on their own in the kitchen. They can cook for themselves, and they can start to be creative with recipes. 17 and 18-year-olds have a lot more freedom. They can also drive, so they can go buy groceries on a budget. They can also prepare a meal plan for the week. So whether you're using the More Mama Supper Club meal plan or a different meal plan that you like, or even cookbooks, have them go through the recipes and create their own shopping lists. I also really like to have a whiteboard with every day of the week, and they can choose what meals to make. A great kind of test is to use the meal plan, but to have them create different plans for different weeks. So you're preparing this age to be out on their own, to fly the nest per se. And so I always recommend teaching them how to cook for one person, for themselves, and then how to cook for, 5 people or 4 people, just so that they know how to cook for one, because that can be really difficult for some people to do. So teach them difference of quantities, basic things like rice and pasta they can master, and you can teach them different ways of using rice. So you can do a stir fry with it, or do a casserole, and different things with the specific ingredients. They should also be able to master at least 3 to 5 meals that they can cook for themselves when they're on their own. So this is the age that it all comes together. 17 and 18-year-olds can master all of the skills that we've talked about with the previous ages, and they really can take ownership. So what we're doing with this age is really helping them to be prepared when they leave the nest, when they leave the house for good. And how we can do that is really have them and be involved in all the processes of cooking. So that's going to the grocery store, budgeting, getting the list ready, meal planning, making the food, and all of the, cleaning up, all of those things that takes to get dinner on the table for a family or for themselves, they should be able to do. I also have them get out of their comfort zone a little bit and go to different types of restaurants. Go to get sushi one night, go to an Indian restaurant, have them taste and experience different cuisines. And lastly, just have fun with these kids because they're going to be gone and you're going to miss cooking with them. So cook with them as much as you can, get them in the kitchen, and have a happy experience with them. The benefits of getting your kids involved with you in the kitchen are endless. Not only are you bonding with them, you're teaching them a life skill that they can have for the rest of their lives. It can be hard sometimes, but I promise you, if you have that mindset and you stay positive and you do those little things along the way, they will love to be in the kitchen with you, and you get to spend time with your family and have a family affair. And now we get to put it all together. We get to cook together, have every age, have every stage in the kitchen with you, and you get to make it a family affair and spend that quality family time together. This doesn't have to be a long period of time. You can make a meal in 10 minutes. So don't be focused on the quantity of time, but rather the quality of time. What I like to do is just have everyone have a specific job. So the younger ones can be washing fruits and vegetables. You can have the older ones cutting and prepping the meal items. So just have everyone have a specific job and task, and you will be surprised at how quickly you will be able to make a meal. This is also where you can really talk about life with them. Talk about what's going on in their life. Talk about, school, if they're having trouble. Cooking can be really a therapeutic thing for kids. So I hope what you've learned through this guide is to really include your kids in the kitchen, even when you don't think that they can do a task. They will surprise you at how much they can do, and they will love and cherish the time that they get to spend one-on-one with you in the kitchen, making memories and bonding through food. Remember, eating dinner together as a family doesn't have to be stressful. It could be 5 minutes. It can be eating fast food together. It can be going in the car and eating in the car together as a family. So just remind yourself to not feel bad if you can't sit down and eat at the table every night for dinner. The goal is just really spending time together. And if you can make a home-cooked meal, great. But if you can't, don't feel guilty, don't feel bad. Do what you can. Start out one day during a week where you can sit down and eat dinner together as a family, or one day a month. And I promise you that you will see a huge difference of how your family interacts with one another. Happy cooking!